show you a little bit about Garageband. Garageband is a musical app where you can record audio, music, instruments that you might have that could connect to a computer. However, today I'm going to show you how to use the loops. Loops are little pieces of music, and when I take the little pieces of music over into the timeline, I can create some really cool compositions. Let's listen to the composition that I have here now. So you may recognize this composition. It's the one at the beginning of all our Panther Prowl tutorials. You can see here that I have 5 clips, but one of these clips is turned off. If I look over here, I can turn on and off clips just like I can turn off layers in Photoshop. I'm going to click the speaker here to turn this clip back on, and I'm going to scrub it forward just a bit so we can hear the difference in the end. So we can hear there's an additional sound here that makes the music sound a little bit different depending on what I want to use it for. So how do we do this? Let's start a new file. File, new. I'm not going to save this one. You get a menu here, and we're going to start with an empty project, and in most cases you will also start with an empty project. This gives you the most options for putting in the loops that you want. The second thing that will crop up is it wants to know if I'm going to be using any other kind of instruments. To just use the microphone input, even though we're not going to be recording our own voice today, in the future you might be doing that, and this is also a way to have a blank slate and use the loops. Everything else we want to just leave alone. Click Create. Just click OK for today. So here, we don't really need these controls. These are fairly advanced. We're going to just go ahead and put this down so that we can just use this whole timeline to create our sound effects. I'm also going to pull this over as far as it will go. As a matter of fact, you might not even have this menu on the computers that we would be using Garageband on. This is where the loops are. Looks almost like a roller coaster loop. If I click it open, we see a series of different loops that I can play. To figure out what these do, I simply click on one to preview it. When I find the ones that I want, then I can begin to drag them over here. You do also want to watch the beats. Some loops are by the beat. Other loops are by the amount of seconds that it runs. I'm going to go ahead and just take this Airy Vox synth, and I'm going to put it here. Notice that it is a certain length. So when I play this, it's going to play for that exact length of time. To make it repeat, I simply go to the top and I can drag it out to make it longer. Just like in Zoom in Photoshop or in stretching your video player out when you're in Adobe Premiere, Garageband also has that feature. I can stretch these out to make them look longer or shorter. This allows me to get in if I need to edit anything in depth. For now, we're just going to shorten these up so that I can see a little more of my player. Let's find another loop. So I have a little bit of a synth. Now maybe I want to have a drum beat. You can search up beats by putting beat or drum, and immediately you will get choices. When choosing your beats, you do want your beats to go together. I don't think that one would go very well with the synth beat. We need something a little more electronic. This one might work. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to drag this one in. I don't necessarily want my beat to start right away, or I could also have my beat start first and then my music start later. I'm going to go ahead and drag this out. I'm going to make the beat start first, and I'm going to drag this out to about here because I probably want my beat to play for the entire time that it is running. So notice up here we have this little 6x1. When I click this little caret, it is showing me this is the amount of beats. If I want to know amount of time, I can do beats in time, or I can do just the time. So far I have 9 seconds of audio. This is something you also want to think of when you're thinking of the length of whatever you're trying to put your music under. If what you're doing is a minute or 2 minutes, you would want to make your audio that long. So let's listen to what I have so far. So the idea here is you want to keep adding in loops until you get a nice arrangement of music. I'm going to go back and open up all of my loops again by just clicking this X, and it gets rid of my search, and it is no longer just on the guitars.
Q.
There are also sound
Look.
effects.
Hatch.
Let's add in this little jazz hustle. Notice how short this one is because it is more of a highlight feature. You probably don't want to run this one for a really long time. Let's finish it out with this one just for a sample. When you're working in Garageband, you really want to give a lot of choices to what you're doing, trying different mixes, and trying to get something that really goes together. For the purposes of today, I'm trying to do something very quick. This may not sound optimal, but you'll get the idea. Let's listen to the whole piece. So you notice that this ran a little bit long. We can always shorten it back up. Let's only have it play a couple of times. I'm also going to bring this back a little bit, and I'm going to bring this back a little bit, and we're going to shorten up the whole piece all together. Notice also that it just ended its sound abruptly. So if I pull it back to here, notice how it just ended very, very quickly. We can take care of this, and if you notice my lines of fade-ins and fade-outs in my previous piece, we can do the very same thing here. So to do that, we are going to show the automation. Show automation is under the word mix. So mix, show automation, And you'll notice that my pieces now have changed a little bit different color. If I click on one of the lines, now it is showing the volume of that line. I can change the volume as we go. For example, if I wanted this part to fade in, I would just click a dot there, click a dot here, and then if I pull this one down and that one down because there's nothing there, this is now going to fade in. I can do the same thing over here at the end of these two pieces so that this music fades out rather than just abruptly ending. Sometimes it is a little hard to get the dot right on the line. I'm going to pull this one backward, and then I'm going to try again down here. Now this is going to fade out, and I want this piece to fade out almost the same. Click on the layer, make your dot, bring this down. This one I'm going to have fade out just a little bit later than the other. This is also where you could change the volume. Let's say you want this particular piece to be a little lower volume than the other. You could bring that down like this. Let's play it to hear what we have. Now, this piece still didn't end quite like I wanted it to. It still is ending a little abruptly. I may need to pull this back, or I may need to choose a little bit of a different piece in order to make that more of a smooth transition. Be sure not to add in too many layers of sound that don't go together or that overlap too much. Notice how these overlap, but they don't necessarily all overlap at the same time. So be careful with those kind of things, and you can create some pretty cool beats. To save your work, you go to Share. You can export your song just to the desktop. And here we definitely want to make sure that we're naming it, whatever you're using it for your project and or your name, because these all go to the same desktop. And so to be able to find your piece later and export it and put it where we need it to be, it's very important to name. So typically just your student name and maybe your hour. So if your name was Sam and you were hour 7, you could just put 7 hour or hour 7, and again check that it's going to the desktop. And this AAC file should be fine. MP3 is fine. This file is the highest quality. I'm going to export. And you notice that it is exporting, and now this piece is on my desktop. It'll say M4A, and it is ready to play in another piece of video.